Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Soulful Conversations. And I'm delighted to share with you a mediumship conversation with Lucky Junior, a dog in spirit. So, first of all, I'll just briefly introduce myself. My name's Annie Bourke. I'm an animal communicator, animal medium, and telepathic animal communication mentor. I have conversations with animals who are living and animals who are in spirit. And so animals have taught me that once they pass over, although their physical body no longer exists, their soul does endure. And that's how I can connect with them, because I'm connecting with the energy of their soul to have a conversation. So bereaved animal parents can take solace that we always can connect with our animals who pass over. It doesn't matter how long ago they passed away. So our souls always have this very powerful connection. I have spoken with a dog who passed over more than 20 years ago. So there's no time limit on having a conversation with your animal. For you, as the human parent, having a mediumship conversation can provide clarity about what happened and also give you some peace of mind with the grief process. So, particularly if you weren't there when your animal passed away, or you don't have a diagnosis as to why they passed away when they did, animals have good medical knowledge, so they can let me know what actually happened. So you can get answers to your unanswered questions, but having a mediumship conversation also allows your animals to pass on their messages to you. And so often these are messages of love and gratitude for caring about them. But our animals know so much more about us and what we're on the planet to do. They understand our soul purpose and our soul lessons. So, in addition to personal messages from them to us, they can also pass on wisdom and guidance to help us with our life journey. And so, having a conversation with an animal in spirit can help your grief as the grieving human, but it can also help your animal in spirit because they too are grieving. So, this is Lucky Junior, absolutely beautiful boy. And I met him at what can be described as an incredibly difficult time in his human dad's life. Lucky Junior had an older sister dog called Kyungju, and she passed away 5 months before, and the family was still dealing with the aftermath of saying goodbye to her. And then suddenly, Lucky Junior passed away with no diagnosis. And so that meant the family were dealing with the loss of two dogs within 5 months. So that was really tough for everyone. And Dad really was devastated with this loss, as was the rest of the family. But for Dad, Lucky Junior had been his constant companion, his work buddy. They did lots of things together. And so it was just a huge shock no longer having Lucky Junior with him. And then not knowing why he passed away so suddenly also made the grief very difficult to deal with, because there were no answers as to why another dog had passed away. So, very stressful time. So I had a mediumship conversation with Lucky Junior, and he was just delighted to be able to connect with his human dad and to answer his questions. And he totally understood why his dad was so distressed with not having a diagnosis about what happened. So he was able to answer what happened with his passing. And he also expressed that he didn't want his dad feeling guilty about what happened. Often we feel as though maybe we should have picked up something sooner, and we may have been able to prolong our animal's life or give them a better quality of life if we knew what was actually going on behind the scenes. But in this situation, there was nothing different that Dad could have done. And Lucky Jr. wanted his dad to understand that so he could release some of the emotions that he was holding on to about the passing. And Lucky Jr. also was aware about the deep grief that the family were experiencing, and he saw this as a demonstration or expression of how much he'd been loved and cherished by the family. So, as part of the conversation, he did let me know that he was going to reincarnate and come back to his human family. Now, this is something that I do hear in conversations. It's not every animal's destiny to reincarnate in this lifetime of ours and come back to us. But fortunately, many animals do. I know there's a number of animals who have had 3 successive lifetimes in this lifetime with their human, and one who's about to come back and have his 4th lifetime in a row as a dog with his human. So this phenomena does happen, but a lot of people aren't aware of it. So Lucky Jr. was planning to come back as soon as possible because he knew how powerfully that was going to help the grief process for his family and help him and his family to heal. And he hoped that by passing on this information, it would really help Dad's grief process because he could start to look forward to having Lucky Jr. home again, although this time in a different body. And Lucky was very excited to be coming back as well and rejoining his family. And he said to let his father know that dreams do come true. And he valued having this conversation because that was his opportunity to let his dad know that he was coming back and how to find him. So during the conversation, Lucky Jr. told me that he was going to be coming back as a female Samoyed and that she would be a rescue dog. Now, often animals do change gender when they reincarnate. Sometimes that's not their first preference, but if a body is available for them to come back in, then they will accept whatever gender that is because it's the opportunity to get back to their family as soon as possible. Now, with these conversations, the animals have taught me that there is choice in how they come back as what type of animal. So sometimes it may be a completely different species. So sometimes dogs do not come back as a dog. So Lucky could have come back as a cat or some other kind of animal, but he had the opportunity to come back as a dog. Now, they've also taught me that they don't have to reincarnate when the animal is created, so when it's born or when it's conceived. So sometimes the animals who are reincarnating negotiate with a soul living in an animal that may have been in there for several years' time. So, and often with rescue dogs, there may have been another dog soul living in that dog, and then that soul swaps out so that this soul can swap in and return to their human. And so in this situation, Lucky actually negotiated with this rescue dog who was already a couple of years old. So it wasn't like a newborn puppy. But that was the information that he gave, that it was a female Samoyed rescue dog. So Dad and the family started checking out their local animal shelters to find Lucky Jr. in his new female body, as he had told us. But they couldn't find any Samoyed females. So in conversation with them, I said they'd have to widen their search and perhaps look for specific Samoyed rescue organisations. And so they ended up finding this female at a Samoyed rescue organisation in California. Now, interestingly, they'd actually got Lucky Jr. when they lived in California, but they'd moved to the middle of America. And so they weren't in a local catchment area for the rescue agency. And this is a situation that sometimes happens, that our animals do have to jump through a few hoops to come back to us. And sometimes their first option doesn't work out. So the animal that they swap into may pass away or may not be available for adoption. And so in these situations, our animals are very resilient and persistent, and they will work out a way to get back to us. So in this situation with Lucky Junior, because the family didn't live in California, the Samoyed Rescue Southern California agency requested that they did a meet and greet. They wanted to be able to meet the family before proceeding with the adoption. So Dad had to fly halfway across America and hire a hire car to drive to the rescue agency in California and meet what he described as his new four-legged daughter. Now, when he got to the rescue agency, this dog raced around the corner, jumped up to him, and kissed him. And the agency staff hadn't seen a reaction like that before. So this dog obviously recognised Dad, and Dad recognised something in her as well. And he'd bought some of Lucky Junior's toys, favourite toys, for her to play with, and she played with them straight away. So they both recognised each other, and Dad was very excited to sign the adoption paperwork. They then had a 1,900-mile drive home together in the hire car, during which time there was a lot of bonding being done. And Poppy was just leaning into her dad and just enjoying being back with him again. And I think our animals really feel the separation just like we do. And being back with your family again is as surreal for them as it is for us. So they've called the new dog Poppy, although she does get called Lucky quite a lot, just because in looks she is quite similar to Lucky Junior. And she has settled back into the family quickly. And sometimes it takes a couple of days for our animals to recognise who this new animal is who's come home, because they're in a completely different body. And as in Poppy's case, she's changed gender. So when she talks to her fur siblings, she will have a different voice to last time. But most importantly, being in a new body, she has a new scent, and animals rely very heavily on scent. And so they don't recognise each other by smell when they first come back, and they need to recognise each other on a soul level. And we recognise them on a soul level. There'll be something in our heart that moves when we see this animal, and we know beyond a doubt who they are. So she's been enjoying herself so much being at home, playing with her fur sisters. They've had lots of snow, so I've seen all these videos of her playing in the snow with her sisters and absolutely making the most of having a second lifetime with her family. And her sister, who'd passed away just before her, has now also reincarnated. And so the sister who's come back has to adjust to Poppy now being her sister rather than her brother. So it's really interesting, the effects on the family dynamics, because it may be the oldest animal who passes away and comes back in the youngest body. And so all the hierarchy may change in the family. And sometimes the animal who comes back, who was the oldest, thinks that they're the boss and they want to take on those roles again. So it's just that time to adjust, but normally within 48 hours, things are starting to settle down. But one of the most fascinating things in this story is that Poppy is not actually a Samoyed, and she's very similar to the breed that Lucky Junior was. But this is the thing that I've found now with a few of these animals, that they know to tell me that they're at a certain rescue organisation so that their family will find them, even though they're not actually that breed of animal. I'm just in awe of how intelligent they are to know to tell us that. Because if she hadn't said that she was at a Samoyed rescue agency or that she was a Samoyed rescue dog, the family would never have found her. So it's just incredible, the power of these conversations, that the animals can give us such specific details so that we can be reunited with them again. And I've experienced this myself, and there really are no words to describe what it means to hold your animals in your arms again. And so many people say to me to tell their animal how much they love them. Do they know how much they're loved? Do they know how much they're missed? Do they know how much their humans would give to be able to hold them one more time? And so after going on this incredible journey of grief when our animals leave us, there's this absolute amazing experience of having them coming back again. And I knew nothing about this until one of my animals let me experience it. And now I've gone on to experience this phenomenon of reincarnation with so many people. And this is just a classic story where the animal can come home in a different body, but to rebuild those bonds of love and affection again. So in this situation, it really did profoundly help Dad's deep grief, getting the answers from Lucky and knowing that Lucky was going to be coming home again. And that was just so powerful. And it really does change the grief because, yes, you're mourning the one who's passed away, but then you've got this huge sense of anticipation and excitement, wondering what you're going to recognise about them when they come home again. And the whole family adjusts to having that animal home again, and everything just settles back to normal. And in a way, it's almost as though they never left. Yes, they're back in a different body, but there's things about them that you recognize and behaviors that start to come out the more confident they are with being home, and the more they get used to being in their new bodies, the more they can start showing those familiar behaviors. They're not 100% the same because it's not 100% of the soul aspect that reincarnates, but there will be definitely something about your animal that you will recognize. And Poppy, as I said, is certainly very enthusiastic about being at home, spending time with her humans, but also spending time playing with her fur sisters. So if you have an animal in spirit that you'd like to connect with, you can book an animal mediumship conversation session with me where I connect with your animal in spirit, just like I did with Lucky Jr., and get answers for your questions. I connect with animals through photographs, so I just need a photo of your animal and their name and the questions that you'd like answered. I also offer an intuitive conversation, which is not an animal communication session, but where I get intuitive answers to statements that you say that would have a yes or no answer. And I'm happy to explain more about it, but it's a different way of getting information for you. Or if you're interested, I also mentor animal parents to master telepathic animal communication. And so it means that you can then talk with your own animals, living or in spirit, and talk to other animals as well. Telepathic communication is how animals talk to each other, whether domestic or wild. So I've certainly spoken to a number of animals in the wild, as well as domestic animals and animals in spirit. So it's universal. They can all understand what you're saying. There's a variety of ways that they can communicate with you, and I practice all of these in the mentorship program. So if you'd like to find out any information about mediumship sessions, the intuitive answers with Annie sessions, or the mentorship program, then please contact me. I also have 4 free guides that are downloadable from my website, and so I would recommend the Coping with Pet Loss guide, and my website is www.cosmicheartintuitive.com.au. I also have a podcast which is called What Animals Tell Me, available on most podcast platforms. And I'd recommend that you listen to season 1, episodes 1 and 2. I talk about energetic visits in spirit from our animals in spirit, and I talk about animal soul reincarnation. So I'd recommend those sessions. I also have some of my interviews and information videos on my YouTube channel, which is where this video will be available as well. So you're welcome to watch the videos and listen to the podcasts and download the free guides. I'm also the author of 3 books, and my most recent book, Crossing the Bridge to Animal Consciousness, was written particularly for bereaved animal parents. So I talk about what happens when our animals pass away. I talk about energetic visits from them in spirit. I talk about their grief process, healing, and I include a lot of real life stories from my clients, including Lucky Junior's story that you've just heard now on this video. It is book 2 in my Bridging Animal Consciousness trilogy. So I've written book 1 and book 2. And my third book is Evolving Hearts and Souls, The Guide to Spiritual Development. And when I had my spiritual awakening, I had no idea what was happening. I didn't know anything about spiritual awakening. I didn't know that I could experience it. And so I wrote this book to help people understand some of the things that can happen so that you can navigate your journey with less stress and more certainty. Now, if you're in Australia, these books can be purchased directly from me. If you'd like to email me, chintuitive@bigpond.com. For people watching the video who are living outside Australia, the books can be purchased from your local Amazon online store. So thank you so much for listening to Lucky Junior's amazing story of soul reincarnation. And I'd invite you to subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can come back as I load more of these soulful conversations and mediumship conversations. So thank you for listening, and I look forward to catching up with you soon. Bye for now.